Hello everybody and welcome to the Protestant Education. Sorry I haven't had much to offer in the way of videos the past week or two. I was on a family vacation. Today's video we're going to be talking about Pentecostals, who are I would say the children of Methodism. Now Pentecostals get a bad rap a lot of times. If you ask the average Christian what Pentecostals believe, they'll probably tell you that Pentecostals have to speak in tongues to be saved, or the Appalachian snake handling stuff. That's not entirely true. Some denominations think that, but most of the sound ones don't. But where did Pentecostalism come from? Well, Pentecostalism is the child of Methodism, specifically the Wesleyan holiness movement that spun out of the 19th century. It followed revival movements in America, and because it came from evangelical movements, it spread pretty quickly. This all culminated in the Azusa Street Revival, which was a series of revival meetings in Los Angeles, led by William J. Seymour. Revivals were happening all over America, though, and in the time, segregation was very prevalent. But you would often see a lot of black and white people worshiping together at these revivals. Now, eventually, they would be forced to segregate due to pressure and, Jim Crow and all that. But some Pentecostal groups didn't really abide by the perceived necessity for segregation. And so they continued to worship despite race. Women also served a huge role in the growth of Pentecostalism, and many women would become pastors and leaders in the churches. But the growth of Pentecostalism didn't come without challenges. It was criticized by other Christians for being, quote, the climax of demon worship, and, quote, the last vomit of Satan. They kept their congregations going, though. As Pentecostalism grew and adopted a lot of followers in the South, they really started to adopt some Baptist views. And this eventually led to the split in Pentecostalism, known as the Holiness Pentecostals and Finished Work Pentecostals, with various groups forming within each big group. This is where Assemblies of God comes from, Assemblies of God being the biggest and most prevalent finished work Pentecostal group. Later on, a third group of Pentecostals would emerge in 1913, calling themselves Oneness Pentecostals, who openly deny the Trinity, opting for a oneness view of God, which is known as heresy. Assemblies of God rejected this teaching despite pressure to conform to it within Pentecostal groups. The Pentecostals would be rejected by the Christian fundamentalist movement a little bit later in 1928 due to the movement's doctrine of cessationism, or the idea that speaking in tongues, among other gifts given to the apostles at Pentecost, were no longer available and were a one-time thing for the apostles way back in 33 AD. After World War II, though, the evangelicals who came from the fundamentalist movement started to adopt the Pentecostals because of the earlier decades' perceived spiritual dryness within their own movements. And in the 60s, the Pentecostalism that we all know, love, and love to make fun of really started being born, with the rise of charismatic Christian movements in the United States. This is kind of where Neo-Pentecostalism comes from, and it was an idea formed to help revive the mainline Protestant churches. It took a lot of charismatic tendencies with evangelism, but not necessarily in the theology. And this birthed even more charismatic Christian movements. In the current day, Assemblies of God is one of the most prevalent Christian denominations, and many non-denominational congregations come from the Pentecostal movement. But I think as short as this video is, sorry that this video is a lot shorter than the other ones, but, I think there's some things that we can learn from the history of Pentecostalism. I think the history of Pentecostalism does a great job showing us how quickly we divide up over smaller things when schism and retreat are seen as an option to take lightly. It didn't take super long for Pentecostals to get split in multiple groups. It really only took them a couple of years. I guess a few years if we want to be technically accurate here. you know, and one of those groups fell into heresy pretty quickly. But, you know, I think there is also an important lesson in the earlier history of Pentecostalism with what I was saying about segregation and standing up for what we believe in. I'll leave you guys with the thought that I have a lot of respect for Pentecostals despite their errors. I think we have a lot to learn from them, and I'd encourage you to do some more learning about them on your own. But this is the Protestant education. It has been a joy to record for you guys. God bless you guys and your families. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. This is probably going to be one of the shortest videos on the channel, and I'm okay with that. Anyway, see you.